The line has to be drawn here, this far and no further!
Hey everyone, Mikey here, and welcome to today's video, where I will be going over my budget-friendly controlled science build on the new Terran Trailblazer Science ship. As you can see, this ship definitely screams Terran Empire, where you have the regular Pathfinder but with all the Warship Voyager weapon ports, and also a science ship with a phaser lance. What more could you ask for? Let's take a look at the build, shall we? So I've chosen to do another Deuce-Eye build, mainly because I have a lot of fun with Deuce-Eyes, and also there's too many torpedoes out there these days, and even I'm getting tired of not only flying a torpedo build, especially on science ships, but also getting tired of playing it, to be honest with you. Deuce-Eye is good because it's a little more challenging. As I've stated before, you have to constantly balance your power levels between your weapons and your auxiliary, and the biggest sacrifice is going to be your maneuverability. You will see that in the ISE shortly, that my maneuverability and my piloting was definitely below what it should have been. But all in all, this is a very solid build. As you can see, I have almost capped the control at 370 and my EPG's at above cap at 450. So this ship does do a good amount of damage. For weapons, I'm using the covert phasers. Again, it's any reduction in threat is always a good thing, especially for science ships. This particular ship is not that squishy, especially compared to other science ships in the game, but EPG abilities and control abilities generate a lot more threat than other types of weapons, so anytime you can reduce your threat when flying a science ship is always a bonus. For the torpedo, I'm using the gravimetric torpedo from the Dyson Sphere reputation. This is one of the top science torpedoes. On spread, it creates the little gravimetric rifts, so it acts as like mini gravity wells. But word of caution, this torpedo does have splashback under high yield, so if you're going to use this in conjunction with concentrate firepower, be very mindful of that. For ship equipment, I'm using the Revolutionary set. This is one of my go-to sets for not only leveling tunes, but also for a lot of my science ability ships. It gives you a lot of good boost to your control, your EPG, etc. But also because the 3-piece set gives you the mycelial weapon, which can do a lot of damage. And then when using the 4-piece, you get a good boost to your crit chance, and it really enhances the mycelial weapon. When using the 4-piece, I can routinely get a 2 million plus crit hit from it. I know a lot of people don't have this set because it was an older event. It's a set that I hope does either get put into Phoenix or Muds. It is definitely worth picking up. If you don't have access to this set, I would recommend getting the Temporal 2-piece. So the Temporal Warp Core and Temporal Shield from the reputation. Mainly because the set gives you a nice little 2-piece bonus that increases the damage for your DOT abilities. And for the Deflector and Impulse, I would recommend either getting the Gamma Quadrant set, because they're both good for control and EPG, or you can get for the Deflector, or the Bajoran Warp Core is another solid pick for Deflector, and then you can use the competitive impulse engines. Secondary Deflector, I'm using one of the Colony ones. Again, these are, in my opinion, one of the better secondary deflectors. If you don't have access to that, you can craft one or get one off of the exchange. Aft weapons, I'm using, again, a Covert Omni. I'm using the Trilithium Omni for its procs and the cycle hastes. And I'm using the Dyson weapon. I usually don't use this, but I thought I'd give it a shot on this. mainly because it has a decent two-piece where, again, more critical chance, and hell, you can never have too much critical chance. And plus it boosts the projectile damage from the gravimetric torpedo because it is a photon. Devices pretty much standard, using reactive armor, deuterium, Kobayashi, and I'm using a team battery for weapons and auxiliary. Or you can even use like the personal one that gives you weapon auxiliary power setting. For consoles, always use the Locator. Even though I'm not using the two-piece, but still, even on its own, this console is extremely good. Crit chance again, more weapon power setting, which you do need in this type of build, and shield pen. Can never have too much shield pen either. I'm using the Tholian web spinner array. Again, this is an older event console, one of the best ones we have gotten for EPG. I do hope this does become available for players who don't have it. I'm using the Icarus Vengeance. This is another event one from a recent event. It's a decent console. I'm still hemming and hawing if it's really good or not, but it kind of fits for a science ship. One of my personal favorites, the Neutronic Eddy Generator from the Ryzen weather control ship from a couple years ago. Again, another console event item that needs to be made available for other players. Genesis Seed from the Clark, pretty much another must-have for science builds. Does a massive amount of damage and acts as another control ability. The Crafted Exotic Particle Field Exciter, one of the hardest consoles to get your hands on with the second EPG mod. It is the highest EPG console in the game. Very difficult to get. It took me probably 50 tries maybe to get it. Exotic Particle Focuser from your Fleet Research Lab to, again, boost EPG and control. Cascading Subatomic Disruptions. Still can't say that one. This comes from the Mirror Strike Wing. Again, this is an excellent EPG console, and another example of Terran ships having EPG consoles on tactical ships, but I'm not complaining because this is an amazing console. The Delphic Tear, because it gives a Cat 2 bonus exotic damage plus a little severity, and it acts as a debuff in the cone. Another must-have for science builds. And because it's a Terran ship, I have to have Approaching Agony. You know, it's Terran, you have to have it. Plus it boosts my phaser damage a little bit, and again, more crit chance. Using the Cutting Tractor Beam, another really good console because it boosts all your other universal consoles. Its clicky does okay damage. And the one premium item is the Plasma Storm from the Maquis Raider. This is, if you're going to do any type of control build, this is a must-have. Yes, it comes from a Lobby ship, but also that ship is in MUDs. So it is one that you should have on your radar if you're going to be doing any type of science builds, especially control builds. Okay, for traits, I'm running Feel the Weight of Our Presence to help with some debuffing. Terran Targeting for the crit severity. Intelligence Agent Attaché for captain cooldown abilities. Fragment of AI Tech to boost control and my energy weapons. Invasive Control Programming, which has a chance to knock a subsystem offline when using control abilities. Psychological Warfare to boost the control ability effectiveness. Of course, the Boimler effect for the cooldown reduction. Unconventional Systems to keep the Universal Console recharge times low and pretty much on global. Superior Astrophysicist for minor bumps to your EPG and your drain. And Particle Manipulator from your Science R&D for the extra crits. For Starship traits, using Electrified Anomalies from the Rising Control Ship. Does extra damage and increases power levels. Synthetic Good Fortune from the T6 Nova. A little extra control Every time you use a control ability, you get a big boost to both your control and your crit chance, and it can stack up to 40 times. So this is a very good trait to have for science abilities. Spore infused anomalies. Every time you activate another science ability, your anomalies spit out basically a spore field and can do considerable damage. Improve gravity well, because that is the star of the show and you need the gravity well up as quickly as you can. Leisurely pace from the Ryzen cruiser. Again, another ship that needs to be put into either MUDs or the Phoenix so people can get their hands on it. Basically at low throttle or complete stop, extra EPG and control. And because this is a do build, overpowered over guns to help with the power cost and a little bit extra cycle haste. For stations, we got tractor beam, scramble sensors, photonic shockwave, all Yukon procs, using chemosite laced weapon, torpedo spread 2 for the gravimetric, and of course beam overload 3. For the miracle worker, using the destabilized warp core. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but I kind of like the effect it does, and it has potential. Because this is a do build, narrow sensor bands to increase the damage of the phasers. Emergency power to aux, obviously to extra aux power and damage, and to help proc it off. Jam targeting, again, another Yukon proc. Hazard emitters, because sometimes you do need a heal. Using call emergency artillery 1, because even in the rank 1 still does a good amount of damage. And of course gravity well, because this is control. And you can switch them and go gravity well 1 and call emergency 3 if you really want. Okay, for duty officers, I'm using a projectile crit officer, because these have a higher chance of proccing than the energy weapon ones. Technician to increase exotic damage when using emergency power to aux. Sensor officer to debuff offensive damage from your enemies when using sensor scan. Of course, the gravimetric aftershock officer. The gravity well engines offline officer, and using a reduce recharge time for photonic abilities officer. Again, I'm kind of steering away from using the Borg officers on this build, because 1, I don't really have a lot of the good ones, and 2, they are very pricey. And I want to showcase that you don't have to have them to do a decent build. So now we'll go watch the ISE, and we'll see you afterwards for the parse explanation. Get everything.
The probe is closing in on the trench. Destroy it. The probe is closing in on the trench. Destroy it.
flash generator over here. Alright, looks like we got everything. Whoa. There we go.
Mission accomplished.
Combat log off. Hey everyone, so welcome to the parse explanation. As you can see, it was a fairly good run, really competitive. Big thank you to my good friend Grumpy Old Nord, who hosted this run on his stream. If you haven't checked him out on Twitch, please do. Give him a follow, and if able, give him a sub as well. Our good friend Chaos was also involved in the run. As well, my good dear friend JB was tanking. Extremely good tanking. Again, JB. Excellent job, thank you. So good, the Borg didn't even notice I was there. I didn't even take in a single attack. Well done, my friend. So I was on Hannah, which is my science tune, where I do vast majority of my science builds. As you can see, 275k DPS. Not fantastic, but not bad. I will be honest, I was expecting a little more out of this. I was hoping to get above 300. But then again, considering this group and how quick this run did end up being, and also how bad my piloting was, 275 I will take. And the max one hit of 1 million, which is most likely the mycelial weapon. So let's take a quick look at the breakdown. So pets were the first on the list at 98k, and I believe that is, yes, Genesis Seed at 25, which is not bad. Very low one hit. I think I didn't time it right where I placed it. Artillery Vessel, even at the first rank, still did 15k, which is very good. Neutronic Eddy 13k, pretty much standard. Approaching Agony did 10k, that's a little higher than normal, but it's when you place it on a bigger group, that's when you're going to get more damage. Let's see, Helitorsion Rift 9k, Borg Generator 8k, pretty much again all what you would expect on a science build. So yeah, the single high hit of 1 million was the mycelial weapon emitter. So even with just one activation at the end against the final attack cube, even with just a 1 million hit, still did 9k. That shows you how good that 3 or 4 piece set can be on a science build. The beam banks at Overload 3 did 14k, but because I'm not running super weapon ingenuity, you see I have a lot of regular fire arcs at 13k, so 137 compared to 36 at Overload. So yeah, the super weapon ingenuity trait from the Xindi Adolith Dreadnought is pretty much a must-have when you're doing beam overload, and this is a perfect example as to why. Secondary deflector, just under 13k, not too bad. I've had higher. The gravimetric torpedoes under spread 3 did 11k, so that's pretty good. Occur's Revenge console did just over 8k, which is actually better than previous runs I've had. Disappointed with cascading subatromic disruptions. This time I only did 8k. I think, again, this is another console I'm having difficulty with the timing of, because I have seen this console do like 5 times that amount of damage, and I've routinely seen it hit for over 1 million, so I think I just need more practice on that. Everything else is pretty much the same. You know, spore infused anomalies is fairly low because I only have the gravity well. On other builds where you're having you know, abilities like Cold in Space, Vortex, yeah, you're going to get a lot more damage because each one of those will spawn the spore wave. Destabilize Warp Core, which is that instant ability from the Miracle Worker, just under 3k, so it's not great, not bad. Yeah, Spore Infuse just from the Gravity Well, 2k. I did manage to steal someone's CF3 charges. I don't know who was using it. I just saw, there's the Phaser Lance. The Phaser Lances don't do a lot of damage, unfortunately, but it's an inert ability that doesn't take up a console space, so, you know, it's free damage, basically. The Destabilized Warp Core Explosion, 1300. Again, it's not a great ability, but to me, I just wanted to put it on because it kind of fits the theme a little bit. So yeah, 275k, not bad, especially considering that this is a scaled down version of my normal science builds. So there we have it, everyone. That was the parse explanation and the IC. As you saw, this build did reasonably well. I will admit, there is room for improvement, but for a more budget-oriented player, this is going to do the job just fine. I hope everyone has enjoyed the video. You know, please do all the normal YouTube things, you know, comment, like, and subscribe. I know it's annoying to listen to that, but it really helps the channel out. And until next time, I hope everyone has a great day, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.